In the war on terror, the U.S. Navy SEALs are America's secret weapon. Undergoing rigorous, even brutal training, these elite commandos operate on sea, air, and land and are often called shadow warriors. They're considered the world's premier special forces, but usually prefer to stay out of the public eye. But today, a newly retired Navy SEAL who survived the worst one-day disaster in the team's history is speaking out. In June 2005, Marcus Luttrell was one of 4 SEALs hunting the Taliban in Afghanistan. When his team was ambushed, he saw all 3 of his comrades die. A rescue helicopter bearing 16 more special forces was also destroyed, killing all on board. All that and the incredible story of how Afghan villagers defied the Taliban to save his life is in Luttrell's new memoir, Lone Survivor, the eyewitness account of Operation Red Wing and the lost heroes of SEAL Team 10. Marcus Luttrell, good morning. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Let me jump right into June 2005. You and your team have gone into Afghanistan hunting the Taliban. Things seem to be going well, and all of a sudden you come in contact with a couple of goat herders.
Yes, sir.
Now, most people would say, okay, not a big deal. They were unarmed, I should say that. But the team knew pretty quickly this was a life or death moment. Can you explain that?
Right. Our sole purpose up there was to basically recon a village that a known Taliban agent had been held up. And of all the mountaintops on all the mountains out there, these guys decided to walk up on top of us. And we knew it was a bad situation. Anytime we get compromised is not part of our job.
You talk about compromise. Here are these goat herders. They're unarmed, but you know you have 2 choices. You can let them go, and there's a very high probability they're going to rat you out to the Taliban,
right,
and then you're going to get attacked. Or you can execute them right there on the spot and cover your tracks. And the group actually, the 4 of you, took a vote.
Yes, sir.
How did the vote break down?
We pulled them off to the side, sat them down, put security on top of them. Then one by one we started talking to each other and decided what we were going to do with them. Execute them, obviously. And but with that, they had a multitude of goats with them, like 100+ goats with them. And there's a small village around there. People would have been looking for them. So if we would have executed them, they would have found them. Then,
and if you let them go, you know pretty sure that you're going to be compromised. Let me read you something you wrote in the book, okay? It was the stupidest, most southern-fried, lame-braid decision I ever made in my life, to vote to let them go. I must have been out of my mind. I'd actually cast a vote which I knew would sign our death warrant. I turned into a blanking liberal, a half-assed, no-logic nitwit, all heart, no brain, no judgment, the judgment of a jackrabbit. You were attacked after you let them go.
Yes, sir.
By between 80 and 100 members of the Taliban.
Yes, sir.
And it was nasty.
Yes, sir.
They had the high ground. They forced you off the side of a mountain. And you watched over the course of this some heroism and some tragedy take place, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about what happened.
As soon as we turned the goat herders loose, we reconfigured on the backside of the mountain, just slightly off the high ground. And I'd say about 45 minutes later, 30 to 45 minutes later, about 100 to 120 Taliban fighters walked up on top of us. And then it was game on then. I took the first shot, and then they started moving down our flanks and then came up underneath us, surrounded us 360 degrees, and then they pushed us back down the mountain about 5,000 feet.
4 of you, 80 to 100 of them. You guys are trained for extreme circumstances, but this was above and beyond.
It was a good time.
Yeah. Your radio wasn't working? You couldn't get back up?
On the initial fall, Danny, one of my teammates, Danny Dietz, had stayed back up on top of the ridge and was trying to make comms back to call in the QRF, our Quick Reactionary Force, to come in and help us out. And the rest of us had fallen back. And then once we set up a new position, Danny had rolled back down to us, and he had been shot 2 or 3 times by the time he had gotten to us. And then Matt Axelson was the same way.
Without getting into too many of the details, one of the guys loses a thumb. It gets hit by a bullet. He continues to supply cover fire. Lieutenant Mike Murphy, your best friend,
yes, sir,
did something extraordinary to try to save the team.
Yes, sir.
He stood out in the open,
right,
so that he could get a cell phone signal.
Right.
Normally you don't use a cell phone in that situation. It compromises your location. Right. He basically signed his own death warrant so that your location would be found out by...
Well, our location was already compromised, obviously, with
by the Taliban,
right?
But trying to make contact with backup.
Right. We were in a ravine, a channelized area, the boulders. It was kind of a logging area, and the only place that he could get to high ground. Every time we tried to push up the side of the mountain, then they'd push us back down with RPGs and mortars and AK fire. So the only place he could get to was the highest rock, right in the middle of the channel. And I watched. Matt and I were already down below. We had already lost Danny. And he walked out, sat down on the rock, and I made the phone call. And I saw him get shot once or twice in the back. And then he kept talking, hung up the phone, picked his rifle back up, flanked left back up beside the mountain, started fighting again.
And was killed.
Yes, sir.
He's being considered for the Congressional Medal of Honor for what he did. We don't have time to get into the whole story. You somehow survived, crawling estimated 7 miles. You were eventually really taken in by some Afghan villagers opposed to the Taliban.
Yes, sir.
And rescued. And do you have any idea why, they did that for you? They basically went against the Taliban to save you.
Right. Yes, sir. It's Pashtun custom, Pashtuwali. Once they offer you assistance, or once I ask for assistance, then it's 2,000 years of custom that they were honor bound to protect me. Gulab, Sarwa, Norzamana, and a few others they doctored me up every day, twice a day. Sarwa was the doctor, and the Taliban had encircled the village and tried to come in every day to get me, put a bounty on my head, threatened to kill everybody in the village. So the villagers pulled all the surrounding villages in. I mean, I could look out and see villagers in the trees, trying to protect me, and they'd move me from house to house, and they weren't going to give me up.
There's a little bit of controversy that's been generated in the aftermath of this. Galoob, I think you mentioned. Walab, who's one of the people who helped you most.
Yes, sir.
Has since claimed that he's not been treated very fairly by the U.S. military, and perhaps some promises were not kept. How would you respond to that?
Actually, there's a lot of that's hit or miss. When I was actually there when they were resupplied, and in their culture, you can't just reward one man for one thing.
You can't just give him money. You can't hand him cash for helping a soldier.
Right. What we did was we outfitted the village with the generators, built a road into there, and then put it in his name. That gives him status. He also got a job working as for construction for the military.
So you think that reparation, or that they were actually rewarded for the help they provided?
Yes, sir. But it's vicious out there. I mean, he's always under constant attack and bombardment. So no matter what he does, I mean, it's both sides of the fence. He can either help the U.S. and then be chased by the Taliban, or vice versa.
I mentioned that you survived, obviously, but you've got some wounds also that are probably going to be with you for the rest of your life. Is there also that emotional thing that people talk about all the time, that survivor's guilt, as to why are you the one who survived when the 3 others with you died, and those 16 who were coming to get you died?
Well, I died on that mountain too, sir. I mean, I left a part of myself up there. I think about it every day. There's not a day that goes by where I don't wake up or I don't go to bed, if I do sleep. So. And
do you go back and think about that vote every day, that if you had voted to, by the way, you would have been worried that you would have been prosecuted in this country if you had killed those 2 goat herders, would have violated the rules of engagement,
yes,
so
sir.
to speak. But do you still second guess that vote every day?
Every day. Every day. It'd be worth me doing the time in prison if my buddies were still alive, if that answers your question.
You've been out of the military 2 days now.
Yes, sir.
What are you going to do?
Take a little break, and then medical school. I want to apply to medical school and do that.
The book is called Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell. Thanks very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good luck to you.